Ranni the Witch was one of the 3 Empyreans, which means that she was selected by the Greater Will as a candidate to ascend to godhood, and hence to become the next ruling divinity of the lands between. But did you ever appreciate that Ranni actually embraced her Empyrean destiny? It's extremely easy to misinterpret this fact, because Ranni herself describes her Empyrean status as something of a curse, and she tells us that she sought to escape this curse by slaying her so-called Empyrean flesh. Or in other words, she killed her original body but preserved the life of her soul, and she found a new body for it to inhabit. And the reason Ranni did this is because her original Empyrean body made her vulnerable to the meddling of higher powers, in the same way that Malenia's Empyrean body made her a captive to the Scarlet Rot, or even in the way that Queen Marika's body made her a prisoner of Radagon when the Elden Ring fused Radagon's body into hers. Ranni must have studied the fates of Malenia and Marika, and she must have come to understand that her Empyrean body made her vulnerable to similar forms of captivity, and so she destroyed the prison of her flesh. And all that makes it sound like Ranni must have renounced her Empyrean destiny altogether. But we know that can't be right because Ranni's War Counselor Iji describes the situation somewhat differently. Iji tells us that Ranni has chosen to tread what he calls the dark path of the Empyrean. And he adds that Ranni chose this path as her destiny in the very moment when she renounced the flesh of her original body. And on closer consideration, we can also see that Ranni herself frequently echoes this idea whenever she speaks of the dark path that she must tread in order to bring about the age of stars that will succeed the Golden Order. And so the reality of the situation is not that Ranni abandoned her Empyrean destiny when she slayed her Empyrean flesh. It's rather that she has taken this destiny into her own hands, and she has found a darker path toward godhood that would free her of the captivity that binds Malenia and Marika to the will of the outer gods. But what is it exactly that makes Ranni's path to godhood so dark? That's the question that I really want to understand. And I think that there's both a literal and a symbolic meaning behind the darkness of Ranni's Empyrean path. On the literal level, Ranni's ascension to godhood physically requires that she travel into the night sky, which is itself the very heart of darkness. And when she arrives, Ranni will commune with certain astrological bodies like the stars or the so-called dark moon, whose mystic wisdom is the ultimate source of her power. These astrological bodies are really divine forces that govern the direction of fate and history, and that is the reason why Ranni must commune with them as part of her ascension to godhood. She must take control of these forces, and thereby grip the reins of cosmic destiny in her very hands. And in doing this, she will acquire the power of a god, as the one who commands the fate of all things. But Ranni's dark path to godhood really starts to get interesting when we ask ourselves how she intends to use these astrological powers. What kind of kingdom does she plan to create in the lands between? And what kind of life does she plan to produce for the creatures that live beneath the stars? Here again, Ranni draws on the imagery of darkness to describe her intent. She tells us that she plans to plunge the very world into the darkness of an endless night. This darkness represents a condition of fear and doubt, uncertainty and loneliness that stretches over all and knows no rest. But what does that actually mean? What does this darkness of loneliness and fear actually look like for people living on the earth below? The answer is actually quite simple. It is freedom. The darkness of Ranni's night is freedom. And the reason Ranni travels into the stars and gathers the power to govern all of fate is not to thereby control the course of human civilization. On the contrary, Ranni intends to withdraw from the world, to abandon humanity entirely, and she plans to take all of her divine power along with her. She will leave humanity to its own devices, free from the meddling of the gods. And this freedom is what Ranni describes as the darkness of her age of stars. For Ranni understands that freedom is terrifying as the night. To be free is to be alone. It is to choose the course of your own destiny without the guidance of any higher power or any knowledge of the consequences that your actions will bring, or whether they will secure your happiness or doom. And so to be free is to face the abyss, the darkness of endless night. And that is the gift that Ranni has chosen to deliver to the world when she walks the dark path of the Empyrean. Her goal is to remove the guidance and control of the gods from human life. And in so doing, she seeks to plunge the whole of humanity into the dark freedom of endless night.